Hello and welcome to episode 53 of the Sandeman Street podcast, a podcast about Dundee and Dundee United from fans of both clubs. I'm Andrew and today I am joined by Jack, who happens to be my regular co-host. Jack, how are you?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, mate. We're also joined this week by Martin. Martin, how's things?
Yeah, all good, Andrew. Thank you for having me on.
Not
Good to be
bad,
back.
no problem at all. We'll start off this week by having a nod towards our social media platforms as per usual. On Twitter or X, whatever you prefer, we are at Sandeman ST Pod. On Instagram at the Sandeman Street Pod, all lowercase. And on YouTube at the Sandeman Street Podcast. Okay, if you could find us on those, give us a follow. That would be muchly appreciated. We'll start off this week by going over Dundee, and then we'll let the two United fans chew the fat over that. I don't know if the two of you have seen the highlights and wanting to put your thoughts across before I have a bit of a rant.
I have seen the highlights of that Dundee game actually. I just watched them today. I haven't really looked too much into the game, but it looked like a pretty even game until Aberdeen scored, and then from then it was sort of one-way traffic by the looks of it.
What about yourself, Jack? Have you seen any of it at all?
Yeah, I've seen the highlights, yeah. I agree with Martin, it did look quite even. Aberdeen did create a few chances for Olasanya, who couldn't hit a barn door with a banjo, or whatever the saying is, but I could also a banjo. But yeah, they did create some chances, but they never took them, and then eventually they were able to, once they took one, they were able to grab a couple more and put the game out of sight. But I thought Dundee were fairly in it up until that point, and then once Aberdeen scored a couple, it was very much game over.
Well, to be honest with you, I was actually very, very impressed with the start to the game. Straight from the off, Dundee had most of the possession, all on the front foot. They were getting the wide players involved, Bevan and Riley, a few crosses into the box. Never really created anything in terms of clear-cut chances as such, or even really half chances, but they had the majority of the play. As the second half went on, Aberdeen came into the game a bit more. They had a couple of good chances themselves. One of them, I thought, was probably a foul on Owen Bevan when Olasanya stole the ball off him. I think 9 times out of 10 those are given, so I don't really understand why it wasn't given, but he went through on goal, and I think the more clinical strikers finishing that, if it was Kevin Nisbet in that situation, given it's against Dundee and he always does score, I think they would have probably put that in the back of the net. But good save from Owen Goodman, should I say, coming out making himself big. Dundee had a couple of chances themselves on the break, long balls over their defence, and they just never ever dealt with them. The Aberdeen defence, I think a couple of their new signings are really, really poor in my opinion. The boy Happy, 6'5" or whatever he is, centre half, not very good, very limited. And then the boy Guinness Walker on the left side of the back four is not very good either. The one with Simon Murray, long ball over the top, and it gets in behind. And Simon Murray's guilty of this a lot, in my opinion. He gets the ball stuck underneath him. He then goes down to win a foul because he's lost control of it, and the chances kind of went away with the keeper closing him down. It's never a foul in a million years. They then had one where I think it was Bevan got in behind. In my opinion, should score, kind of toe bashes it right at the goalie. It falls out to Finn Robertson, who had came on after Simon Murray's injury, which, just to cover quickly, didn't look great. I think that could maybe be him out for the season if it's as bad as what was first feared. But it comes back out to Finn Robertson and he just dilly-dallies on the ball. You can't see a pass on, ends up taking a heavy touch in a panic. In my opinion, you're standing kind of wide of the goal in the box. Just lace it at the goal and see if you can maybe win a corner or even maybe find the corner of the net. And then just before half time, Joe Wesley has a bit of a half chance from a header that goes narrowly wide. And you're going in at half time thinking, played away alright here. It's a 0-0. We've probably had the better of the matches. Aberdeen had a couple of chances themselves towards the end of the first half as well, but overall I think Dundee probably just shaded the first half. They come out for the second half, and I mean, we'll talk about referees in your guys' section. Obviously there was a bit of a controversy surrounding a few decisions made in that game, but I mean, this was arguably one of the most bizarre refereeing decisions I've ever seen. So Joe Bevan goes down just inside Dundee's half, just inside Dundee's half, and the referee calls the trainer on. But Joe Bevan is fairly quickly back to his feet, doesn't ask for treatment. There's then a bit of confusion as to what's going on. The trainer's coming on, and you can see the trainer speaking to the ref like, he's not wanting us on, but because the referee has called the trainer on, he has to go off for 60 seconds with the new rule, which, I mean, I don't really agree with it in terms of the bigger picture, but if they're doing things towards time wasting and players going down when they're faking injuries, I suppose it's a good thing. But he has to go off for 60 seconds. There's then a drop ball, which Dundee get because they were in possession when the game was stopped. And football players and their lack of brain cells, the boy Obatayo at first thinks it looked like he didn't have a clue what was going on. The referee then picks the ball back up and drops it again, and he, rather than just playing the ball to his centre half, passing the ball into midfield, putting the ball up into the corner for players to run onto, he decides to, as a left back, wallop the ball across to the other side of the pitch. Barely even made it out of Dundee's half if it did. Sliced it for all the way across to the right wing where Joe Bevan would have been if he wasn't off injured. So God knows why he was thinking that pass was ever on. And Aberdeen get the ball, go to the park and score. Now, I'm not saying for a second that it would have been preventive that Dundee had their 11 men on the pitch, but it all came about in very, very bizarre fashion. Now, there was a lot to be optimistic about after last week's game. We played very well and got a good result. And to be honest with you, 2-0 kind of flattered Aberdeen. It probably should have been more. But they found out this week that if you don't take your chances, it'll cost you, because last week it could have easily cost them as well. They had so many chances, they obviously managed to put 2 of them in the net, but this week they managed to put none of them in the net, and within the space of 15 minutes or so, they were 3-0 down. And all 3 of them were absolute calamities, where boys on the picking up runners. I mean, a couple of them were good finishes, don't get me wrong, but the marking and no following the runners and whatnot was really, really, really poor. And they're out the cup, another cup competition that they can't get any further in, and a stupid penalty shootout defeat to Ross County has cost them, where they've had to go up to Pittodrie as an unseeded team. Ross County get them Fairmont away from home, and they're now into the quarterfinals. Now, I know that everybody's still getting used to everything and whatnot when they're going through the group stage of the League Cup. We've talked that to death, but it's just no good enough. We need to be. I know Ross County are probably got a decent sized budget, but they're in League One. They were a shambles all last season, and we should have been beating them, regardless of whether it was up there or not. And now we've got Murray out injured. We've got Ash Hay out injured, and we've only got one striker who probably isn't really a number 9. He's more of a in behind striker, number 10, if you want to call it that. And the slowness in the recruitment over the summer is now looking like it might cost them. Cost them a place in the quarterfinals, because we didn't have a striker to bring on, and it could cost them until they bring in more. But I think they're going to have to bite the bullet on this careful approach and get 2 or 3 bodies in very quickly. They're going to need at least 1 or 2 in before Saturday, in my opinion. But yeah, disappointing after the hype after last week, which I knew was going to happen. It was inevitable when it comes to Dundee. They get hyped up after playing well last week, and it was always going to come crashing down. But we'll move on to the United side of things, Jack. A 4-0 defeat at home to Celtic, so they also exit the cup. What's your thoughts on all?
Yeah, it's a strange one. It's another game where we've conceded 4. That's 2 games now that we've conceded 4 goals, and I wasn't able to catch the game. I did see the highlights though, and supposedly it's another game where we didn't deserve to get beat 4-0. We hit the woodwork 5 times, supposedly. I've seen 3 of them. I've not seen the other 2. We are unable to defend set pieces, it looks like. Celtic's first goal comes from a set piece, straight from the corner. Trusty flicks it on and it's in the back of the net. Second goal, a lot of controversy about this one. The ball gets played to Casper who goes down with, I think it's Bert Esselink, whose arm strikes the ball, and the ball lands right at the feet of Camilo Duran, who then scores. But it later gets checked by VAR, and they say there's nothing wrong with it, which frankly is a ridiculous decision in my opinion. It's in the rules anyway. IFAB say that if you handle the ball and it lands at your own feet, then it doesn't count, but if it lands at a teammate's, it's fine, which is just bonkers.
Just to pick you up on that, Bobby Madden disagreed with that. He said that the rules state that if a handball, whether it's deliberate or not, leads to a goal being scored, then it should be disallowed.
Yeah, that's what William Collins had said, that's why the goal got given, because the rules state that it's not. So there's obviously a mismatch in what some refs are hearing and what others are hearing. Yeah, so I think it's a very, very poor decision, but it happened, and unfortunately it puts us 2-0 down and makes it a very big mountain to climb. And Celtic then go on second half, score another 2 quick goals, and the game's over. And that decision's definitely not helped.
What about you, Martin? I'm sure you'll have plenty to say on it.
I mean, the referee's coming out and saying that wasn't a penalty. What a load of absolute bollocks. Absolute bollocks if ever I've heard it. That is a stonewall penalty. And I'll tell you something, if that was the other way about and it was consequential for Celtic, let's say it went to a replay or United ended up winning that game 1-0, they'd be talking about it and putting pressure on the SFA for the rest of the season about how hard they've got it and how cheated they are. I could sit here and rant and rave about it, but I've been doing that about decisions that I've seen Celtic get at Tannadice and at Celtic Park for over a decade, and nothing changes. That's just the shite you're up against when you're playing Celtic. What chance have you got? What chance have you got when stuff like that gets allowed? Stuff like that doesn't go penalised. Why turn up? I was asked to go to the game by a mate, and I actually says to him, "No, I've seen that film plenty enough times to know that I didn't want to go and see it again." And that's just one part of the film that totally justifies that decision. An absolute howler of a decision, in my opinion. Obviously, referees are trained on it, and they're saying that it wasn't a bit. I just don't buy it. I think that's a load of bollocks. As for the game itself, again, if it was any other team in the league, we wouldn't have hit the post 5 times. It's always the same against Celtic, and that's why I didn't go to the game. I've seen it so many times, and the last thing I want to do is go to Tannadice, see us get beat 4-0, hit the woodwork 5 times, and absolutely fucking have blood vessels popping out my forehead. It's not worth the hassle, and it's not worth the stress of going. I didn't actually watch the highlights of the game until today, knowing that I was coming on the podcast, because I was just like, I didn't want to annoy myself watching it. And I was going to be coming into this really critical of United, and yeah, there are criticisms. I'll pick up on what Jack was saying about the defending. The defending for the goals, discounting the goal that they shouldn't have had but did get because they play by the Celtic rules. We just can't defend. That's been an issue for a long time with us. We weren't able to defend last season, and certainly it doesn't look like we can defend very well this season. But I think United didn't play terribly. 5 times off the woodwork, another day they go in and we've scored 5 goals. You know what I mean? It's the fine margins of football. They've got the players that will score these goals, whereas we don't, and that's the difference. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's just I wasn't expecting anything from the game, but it makes it a bit harder to take when you see the goal that they scored that should have been, in my opinion, chopped off, and when you hear that we hit the woodwork 5 times. But yeah, the game's against the old firm. These things happen. You've just got to put it in the rearview mirror and say, you know what? Well, we're playing Celtic. That games against Celtic and Rangers aren't going to define our season, and just move on from it.
And I think I think I'm right in saying that it was very similar to your game at Tynecastle the week before, where you had plenty of chances and just didn't really take any of them. So, I mean, the 2 scorelines, obviously back-to-back 4-0 defeats, still look bad, and they are bad. I'm not trying to discount them in any way, or be a happy clapper, as a lot of people would say. But I think it's probably not the worst performances in the world. with it being 4-0, it's probably hard to say, but I think there's encouraging things to take is probably what I'm getting at.
There's a problem with these. We're putting in the decent performances, right, and we're creating these chances, but in the last two games, despite creating some pretty good chances, we've not hit the target once. I know people say, me and Martin talked about this off recording, but we don't know if hitting the post should count as being off target. It is off target, but it's close enough where it's pretty not great to say it is off target. But if you exclude them, we've not hit a shot on target once in 2 games, and in games that we were supposedly in and creating chances in. So yes, there are positives. At least we're getting them chances, but the fact that we're not able to hit anything on target is a real worry, in my opinion.
I know that we've played Celtic, and last weekend we were playing the team that arguably, if the referees in this country were a bit more competent, probably should have won the league. But in 2 games to not make a goalkeeper make a save, it's not great. It's not great at all, really. And it just, the performances aren't bad, but at the end of the day, we're not scoring goals, and that's what it all boils down to. And I remember the season that we got relegated, the first time back in 2015-16 was it? The first game against Aberdeen, we got beat 1-0 at Tannadice. And I remember thinking we've put a pretty good performance in here. And then I think it was the week or two after that, we played Dundee at Tannadice, and that was when we were 2-0 up going into the last few minutes, where Simon Murray hit the post for us. And then we ended up drawing the game 2-0, and the heads went down and didn't come back up for the rest of the season. Now, I'm not saying that's how this season's going to go, but it really hasn't been the best start. And, it could go one of two ways from this point. And I don't want to be talking total doomsday, only 2 league games into the season and a League Cup game into the season, but we need to start scoring goals. It's a real issue. And yeah, you can say, we've got time, but time goes by quite quick, and if you don't start scoring goals and getting points, especially earlier on in the season, you leave yourself very vulnerable and very weak later on in the season. If you can get points in the bank earlier on in the season, you've sometimes got a bit of a cushion, a bit of a pad to fall back on if you go through a spell of bad form later on in the season. But if you've not got those points banked early on, the pressure mounts, and when the pressure mounts, in the past, United haven't dealt with it. In the past, under Goodwin, United haven't dealt with it.
I think there needs to be a small bit of perspective as well, given that the 3 games that you've played so far, be it the Old Firm and Hearts, is a high chance could be the top 3 in Scotland this season when all said and done. So it's not like you're playing Hamilton, Livingston and Airdrie and you're no scoring any chances, no hitting the target and conceding lots of goals. So I think a bit of perspective is probably required in that aspect.
Absolutely, but I do agree with you absolutely there, but again, I would just like to see some shots on target, you know what I mean? Like, it's a hard one because we did hit the post 5 times against Celtic, or the woodwork, whatever, the bar, whatever it was, but it doesn't make for a great reading earlier on the season, and I've got no doubt things will change. Give us a few games against some easier teams in the league, the goals will come, the performances will get better, as well as the squad, who have got a lot of new faces in the squad as well, by the way, get time to gel and get to know each other. But yeah, it's not been the best start, but ever the optimist, hopefully it gets better. I'm sure it will.
And what about the new signings, Jack? I've seen a lot of criticism coming in for the right back, and I was actually speaking to a mate of ours the other day on Saturday night in the pub after the games had been played, and I was saying to him, in years gone by, I could probably name you the vast majority of every player who plays in the Premiership in Scotland, and as I've gotten older, that's waned a bit. But I'm really struggling to half these United players. I didn't know how half of them are. But what's your thoughts been on a lot of them since the beginning of the season?
I mean, Rollins is the right back, and he has been getting flack. And to be fair, as soon as I see him play against, I think it was Spartans, his first game, I wasn't impressed. And I did say that on the podcast. I thought he had good movement. Defensively, I didn't think he was good, and his decision making was poor. And so far, I feel like my analysis of him's been pretty accurate. So yeah, I've not been terribly impressed with him so far at all. Another one that's maybe flatter to deceive is Jesse Randall, the right winger or left winger, wherever he wants to play. We got this hype of this guy, tore up the A-League, went with New Zealand to the World Cup and all that, and he's came and I feel like he's not done anything. I feel like he's quite lightweight for the league. I think he's maybe a bit nervous, he looks like, when he's on the ball. I don't know if he's used to playing with such pressure. I know he did win the A-League with Auckland, but I feel like Scotland's a much more demanding league than the A-League, so I don't think he's impressed too much either. And a lot of the signings so far, I'm going to say, have looked mediocre. The new boy Yoru have finally announced as apparently he made a good a cameo against Celtic, so he looks like he could have something about him. But for the most part, I think most of the signings have been pretty average, to be honest, and I don't think many are big upgrades on what we had last season.
And one thing that I wanted to pick up on just before we finished and moved on was, well, a couple of things really. I noticed that, and I think this is right what I'm saying, I noticed that there was a match day squad of 20 United had, and there was only one Scotsman in the whole of the match day squad. Now Celtic won much in the way of better. I think they only had 4 or 5 maybe, with Forrest, Tierney, McCowan, McGregor, maybe Ralston and Dane Murray. So they're not doing very much better. And I know that I see a lot of United fans on social media getting awfully touchy about this. And I could understand why fans stick up for their club and whatnot. But this is a genuine concern of mine, because this isn't like it's an anomaly. This is the second season in a row. And Jim Goodwin, and by the way, I'm not blaming Jim Goodwin here by any stretch, because Jim Goodwin has got to sign the players who he thinks are going to make United as best as they can be within his budget. And if none of them players are Scottish to make them better, then it's not his responsibility to sign Scottish players because we play in Scotland. It's his responsibility to make United as best as they can be. But in the overall picture, given that we've got this summit thing in St Andrews that's going to make fuck all difference and whenever that's going to be, it's a wee bit of concerning, isn't it?
I think it is a wee bit of concern, and now they were actually talking about this on the radio the other day. I can't mind the team that they were talking about United, and I can't mind the other Scottish club they were talking about that also feel they're a team that hardly had any Scottish players in it. One thing that I do think is an impact on this, right? See, back in the day, United used to be full of Scottish players, and they were all homegrown Scottish players that came through our academy, or boys that we got young and sort of developed in and about the first team that had been at academies at other clubs. A lot of the good young Scottish players that probably would have been playing for us, they get snapped up at such a young age and they're gone, so they never get a chance to play for us. So I wonder if it's a case that there's just not the Scottish talent in the league that we can sign, or let me rephrase that. The budgets we've got to go for players that are not Scottish, because all the Scottish players that we have had that we would be bringing into our squad without having to pay for them because they've came through our youth system never get to the point when they're playing for the first team.
I think the factor is multifold. You've got all Scottish clubs will be shopping in the same market, and British clubs. British clubs, English clubs in particular, are going to be looking up in Scotland and seeing who they can get for value. And ultimately, because their deal, they get down south, they're going to be able to offer more money than what we can. So if we're competing for the same player, they're more than likely going to sign for an English club. Second off, the clubs have got to decide if they feel the value is there. Because I feel like if you're going to sign a boy for Scotland who's wanting $2,500 a week, let's say, to sign for United, okay? Do we reckon we can get the same colour of player from a foreign country that's going to demand less wages? And United obviously feel like we can. We feel like there's not enough value in Scotland for the wages that players are demanding, because they know that they can get, the Scottish players know they can get them wages if they go down south or they sign for a big club up here. I know and there was a rumour that we were after Lewis Mayo, who ultimately signed for Aberdeen. So we're obviously aware of Scottish talent, but we don't have the finances to compete against the clubs we're competing with when it comes to signing these Scottish players. So And then, as Martin said, it's bringing through these youth boys that we're bringing them through, we're paying money to develop them, and then as soon as they're 16, they're going off down south. All the ones that would be able to make a big impact in the first team, they're leaving before they even get a chance. So, yeah,
and they're not getting anywhere. I mean,
no, exactly.
United have sold, 2 or 3, 4 of them within the past 5-6 years, and all of them are back up the road playing for pish part-time teams.
Brandon Forbes made his debut for us, scored the goal, goes down to Norwich for 300 grand. A year later, he's playing at Alloa. He's just signed for Alloa, mate. Like, what a waste.
I know. But the thing is, though, and it's you could kind of understand it on the players' behalf as well, because I'm not saying that United are guilty of this, but there's a lot of clubs that are. There's no pathway for them, so that I can't think of a team off the top of my head that's good at bringing through young players. Hamilton used to be good at it. If you're a Hamilton and you're coming through their youth system, which used to be very good, obviously there's a lot of high-profile people that have come out of that academy. You can see that there's a pathway for you to go and make a first-team career for yourself. Lewis Ferguson, McCarthy and MacArthur, Brian Easton, all these guys, and there's more, have gone on to have pretty decent careers, like playing high up the leagues in England. They've played for Scotland, they've played for Ireland in McCarthy's case. Lewis Ferguson's going over and playing in Serie A and playing in the World Cup for Scotland. There was a pathway for them to go and make first team appearances. If you're not showing that there's a pathway for you, and then a 16, 17-year-old lad is getting offered to go down to an English team for pretty decent dough, you're going down and taking that dough. So I know that the boy Forbes came on a couple of years ago, was it? And played a couple of handful of League Cup group stage games for United, scored a goal, and then a week later he's off to Norwich. But I could understand it from the players' point of view as well, and they've got this summit thing coming up that I touched on in St Andrews. How many times in the years and years that we've been watching Scottish football now have they had these type of things where they have these crisis meetings and summits and government inquiries and all sorts of absolute nonsense, and nothing ever changes because all the clubs, and rightly so by the way, because they're businesses at the end of the day, they're all run to suit their own agenda. So if you're a Rangers or Celtic and you're going into the Champions League every year, then you're thinking, well, why should we put in place a quota of 4 under 21 Scottish players in a matchday squad when we can go and fill our team full of boys from the continent or South America or wherever it is to sign them from and make ourselves better so that we're more competitive in Europe. But I'll give you a really good example of why we need to persevere with it when this won't happen. But Bodo Glimt, they've just qualified for the Champions League phase again, or they're into the playoff round or whatever. They beat, I think it was Union Saint Gilloise, and they had every single player in their squad, or the vast majority of them, were Norwegian, and they've been Norwegian champions umpteen times in the past few years. Norway are qualifying for World Cup this year, and they've done well in it. They got to the quarterfinals. So if you persevere and make your academy the best it can be, and have good youth coaching and bring through players and give them opportunities and develop them into good players, then the future of Scottish football can be better. But at the moment, it's just all self-serving. And as I say, I understand why. But I just didn't see the point in having all these things because nothing is ever going to change. And one thing that I wanted to touch on before we move on was that I noticed that Dylan Tate was suspended for this week, for this game on Saturday. How much of a nonsense is that? He's suspended for a game against a team that haven't even played in the competition this season yet.
Again, that's why I think the League Cup needs to be massively reformed for shite like that. You know, is it any wonder the fans don't turn up for these games? You know, you look at the attendance at Tannadice. Home end was half empty, and stupid rules like that do not help when one of the best players in your squad are suspended to play against a team that hasn't played a game in the competition yet. They go on about these crisis meetings and crisis meetings. There's so many low-hanging apples that they could get to improve the game, but the focus on some good things I've got no doubt, but the focus on some nonsense sometimes. It's like fix the easy things, and then goes talking about the nitty gritty stuff like youth development and that. You know what I mean? Like It's just, I feel they overcomplicate things when they go on about trying to improve the game in this country. It's mad.
Well, I'll tell you what my opinion is on this, right? You will always hear that there's the reason why the 12-team league in the Premiership at the moment is so good is because there's always jeopardy on games. Every game has always usually got something riding on it. Obviously, at the end of the season, you'll get like a United last year where they didn't get into the top six, but they had too many points to get dragged into the relegation zone. So the top six game, well, the bottom six games were really just getting to the end of the season for them to reset and go again the season after. You most of the time you will get them, and then you'll get a sixth place team who are too far off the European places and they'll just go through the motions, all that sort of thing. So there is games that will have no jeopardy on them, but I don't think it's any coincidence that we used to produce good players and more often back in the day when there was a bigger league. Now, if there's a bigger league, you'll get less games with jeopardy, but then young players get thrown in. Young players get a chance in games that are, if you've got a 16-team league, then the teams in amongst the middle towards the end of the season aren't going to always feel like they're in trouble of getting relegated, so they'll be more inclined to play youth boys, and youth boys might then catch the eye, and then they might then get put into more high-profile games, and then they develop more. But now when there's so much pressure on every single game, managers, and it's understandable, are going to be less inclined to do it. And I think the best thing they can do, they don't have to put in quotas for youth players, just extend the league. And I don't think there'll be very many fans that would be against that. I think the vast majority of fans in Scotland are wanting a bigger league. And more importantly than anything, it's boring playing the same teams over and over again. I mean, you could have a situation where you could play somebody like, I think it's like 6 or 7 times in a season. Who wants that? It's
Sky,
just so boring.
Sky Sports want it. That's who
Well, I
wants it,
get it on
and
that side of
they rule
things.
the roost. It's not about what fans want. It's about what brings in the money. And unfortunately, Sky Sports will bring in the money, and they'll get what they want.
Well, yeah, there is that. Anyway, we'll move on to the weekend's results. So on Friday night, Kilmarnock won the Ayrshire Derby 3-2 over Ayr United. Moving on to Saturday, there was 3 games in the League Cup. Aberdeen 3, Dundee 0, Dunfermline Athletic 1, Ross County 2, and Dundee United 0, Celtic 4. Covering the local teams in League 1, Montrose lost away at Alba Athletic 3-0, and into League 2, there was a 3-0 victory for Forfar over Stirling Albion. They don't think Brecon were in action. Arbroath weren't playing due to League Cup games, I would assume. Yeah, Brecon were due to play Cowdenbeath, but the match was postponed. Unsure the reason why. And Lochie United weren't playing either. They must have been in a cup tie, but I can't see the results to that. Moving on to the games yesterday, Sunday the 16th. It was Hearts 6, Inverness Cali Thistle 2, Hibernian 1, Partick Thistle 0. A shock in the game at Ochilview where Stenhousemuir beat Motherwell Madrid 1-0 after extra time, and Rangers beat St Mirren 5-1 at Ibrox. Signing rumours for the Dundee side of things, there was a bid rejected for a centre half from Bromley, and there I've got the boy from Bournemouth that we covered last week on trial still, who name escapes me, but they're going to need to get a few signings in before the weekend, I would assume. I mean, I would hope anyway, given that they only have one striker. Jack, anything on the United side of things?
No, United just confirmed the signing of that Abdullah Yoro, who I mentioned earlier, making his cameo against Celtic. Signed him on loan, and we somehow managed to supposedly get a sell-on clause on him. So if he ends up getting sold by his parent club, then they'll owe United some money, which I think is the first I've ever heard that of a loan club getting that for a player. But I think it's a great piece of business if it works out for United. Apart from that, there's been a slight rumour online that Pam Kamara could be away. Supposedly his missus has had a baby down south, and she's not wanting to move up, so I think he might be trying to move closer down south, but who knows? That's just a rumour just now. Some of the forums, I don't know if that's any truth in that at all. So yeah, apart from that, I've not got anything else now.
Okay, Martin, the derby on Saturday, 5:45 kick-off. what you're thinking regarding that.
I think there's definitely goals in it. Like I said about Dundee's game against Aberdeen, yous were looking no bad until they scored, and yous were creating some good chances. Obviously, we created a lot of good chances as well, and I think if we were playing any other team but Celtic, we probably would have scored a couple. So, given our ability to score goals and your ability to score goals coupled with our inability to defend, I think there's definitely goals in it. What way it'll go, I don't know. I'm going to have to say it'll be a United win, obviously, but I think it's up for the grabs, and I think it could be a good game with two teams who do like to attack and will both be thinking they can go out and win it.
And what about yourself, Jack? Just before we bring you in, I think it's going to be a difficult afternoon for Dundee, or evening, going to Tannadice. They're not quite ready yet. Obviously, they played well against Aberdeen, played away half decent at Parkhead as well. I think United are on the verge of putting the ball in the net a few times. They've obviously threatened it a lot in the past couple of games, and I think the goals will start flowing on Saturday. I do think it'll be quite a high scoring game, which brings shivers down my spine in all honesty. But what's your thoughts going into that?
I mean, I'm putting my streak on the line by going to the game. No seeing United lose against Dundee. Touch wood. So I'm hoping for at least a draw to keep the streak going. I can see it being a 2-1 game, maybe an early goal, a goal near the end of the first half, and then someone will score the winner in the second. As for who, obviously I'm hoping United, but the fact that we're struggling to defend isn't looking great. But Dundee have got a couple of boys out injured, so it'll be an interesting one anyway. A derby's always a fun one to watch, and it's always end to end, so it'll be a good game regardless, I'm sure.
And I think it's verging on a near sellout. I was having a look at Dundee's ticket sales. They went on general sale at 1 o'clock this afternoon, I think, and I looked again maybe about 5-6 o'clock. They had sold the vast the Fair Play stand sold out, and the vast majority of the Jerry Kerr stand has sold out. I think they're on to the second last. They've obviously been opening it in chunks, and they've sold up to the second last section above the tunnel. Once that's sold out, obviously, then the last section will go up, and I would assume by Saturday evening it'll have all but sold out. I don't know about United ticket sales, but I'd assume that they've never announced it's a sellout, I don't think, but I would assume it can't be very far off. So yeah, it'll be an interesting one. But just before we finish up, there's a couple of things we're going to do. We're going to do a top five. We've not done one of these for a while. Top five Derby moments, your personal Derby moments. Now, I've got five together that I've thrown together quite late on. I've not really got any sort of order for them, but Jack, give us your first one.
Top five Derby moments. I've not actually wrote any of this down. I'm just going to go off the cuff with this one. My first one, I'm going to go. Let's go Johnny Russell's long range goal in the 3-0 derby with Rab Douglas in the net when he does the front flip. I'm going to go with that as one of my top moments. So yeah, that's my number five.
Okay, I'll go next. What my first one was you referenced the game earlier. I think Barton it was. We were 2-0 down with about 10 minutes to go or so, and James McPake equalised in injury time with the last kick of the ball. I was in the shed that night, and actually, when it went 2-0, I was on the verge of leaving, and I don't know why, but I decided to just hang around, and it paid off. Now, a few years later, we were 2-0 down, and it was the one where Charlie Adams scored to equalise, and I did actually leave in that one, so I should have learnt my lesson and stayed. But yeah, that was it. That was the moment. There was a guy in front of me actually had a seizure after that goal went in, so you could just imagine the limbs, as they say, in the stand. But we'll move on to you, Martin. What's your first one for us?
So I must have missed the memo about this, but I'll try and come up with them on the top of my head. I think my top Derby moment, I think it's got to be Foyot's goal when we played yous at Tannadice in the League Cup. I can't remember if it was last minute, but it was certainly in the 80-something minute to win the game 1-0. and it was such a tense game. Dundee had a man sent off. That seemed to be the common thing for Dundee when we played you that time. But scoring that goal within the last few minutes and winning 1-0 in the cup, I remember the place was going absolutely wild. So I think that's probably off the top of my head, just on the spot, probably my number one Derby moment.
Okay, Jack, you are up next, mate. What's your next one?
I'm going to go. So it was a game me and Martin were at. Although it wasn't fun for the fact that we were sitting in the Dundee end, it was fun that we got to see United knock Dundee out of the cup. GMS scoring from the wing. I remember Dundee scoring as well, and that was a bit of a torture. But to get the win at Dens in the cup, despite being in the Dundee end, was pretty good. So I'm going to put that at number 4.
Okay, for myself, my next one is the Craig Whiting goal in the Dundee Derby, a former teammate in the school football team, and he was obviously a big Dundee fan himself, and I couldn't not include it basically. So that's my next one. What about yourself, Martin?
I think second one that I can think of, probably in the 6-2 derby in the Championship in 2019. I think Callum Butcher's second goal that game in the 40th minute would scored 3 times in the space of 10 minutes. And I remember, I think that was his header that went in off the post, that second goal, and the place just went absolutely mental. It was a Friday night, it was chucking down with rain, it was a brilliant atmosphere, 3 goals in 10 minutes. It was just potentially I was talking about how crazy it was at full time when we went 1-0 up and beat you in that cup game, but I think this is probably the most wild I've ever seen Tannadice go in a derby. It was just an absolutely brilliant night, and when that fourth goal went in, the place just was, couldn't believe it. 3 goals in 10 minutes, couldn't believe what I was watching. So I think that's definitely one of my top 5 there.
Okay, Jack, what about yourself? What's your next one?
My next one was the same one as Martin's just there. It was the derby in the Championship, 6-2 United. Was there with the missus, and that was our first ever derby, and I got to take her to it, and obviously beat Dundee 6-2. So that was a great occasion for both of us, and that's why it's my number 3.
Okay, for myself, it was a 3-1 victory for Dundee in 2015. It was off the back of not winning a derby for quite a while. There obviously wasn't that many within the space of time, given that Dundee spent the vast majority of the time doing the league, trying their best to never ever get promoted. But they finally done after 2 or 3 really sore ones, and the game before that was the 6-2 at New Year. And obviously, I just had a feeling in that game, standing in the Derry, that we were never ever going to lose that game. You just had a feeling about it. The players looked really up for it, and it was one of the only derbies that Kevin Thompson played, and he just ran the game. It was probably his best performance in Dundee, the jersey. So yeah, that is my next one. What about yourself, Martin?
So I'm going to go back to that 6-2 game that I was talking about. You probably know what I'm going to go and say here. That Dundee goal that was chopped off for being about 10 miles onside was just an absolutely hilarious moment. You just went 1-0 up with that goal, Dundee fans going, as you'd expect, absolutely bananas in the away end. Sure, there was boys on the pitch giving it loudly at the United fans. To then be sat down by such a glaringly obvious refereeing mistake, it's just an absolute, it's a comedy gold moment from a United point of view, so that's got to make it in my top 5.
We've actually had so many Tannadice moments where goals have been chopped off. VARs that have taken
Aye.
forever to be given, and that one that wasn't even before VAR, but wasn't offside, and yeah, it just seems to always happen. There was one last season as well. It's just so annoying.
Aye.
Anyway, Jack, what's your fourth one of the list?
The fourth one on the list is the first 6-2 derby. Seeing your team winning 6-2 against your rivals on New Year's Day, no less, made it a great start to the year. And it was the first time obviously I'd seen United put 6 past Dundee, and I thought it couldn't get any better. So yeah, that's why it's my number 2.
Okay, for me, my fourth one is actually from last season. It's the 2-2 one, where I know that I've put a couple of draws, but it's probably just more the manner of what happened within the game. The the fact that going into injury time we were 2-0 down and managed to come out with a 2-2 draw is just, it still makes me laugh. I just think it's hilarious. I didn't really even celebrate the goal that much. I just stood there pissing myself laughing because obviously, which you would expect, the United supporters are all packed in the away end and they're singing all the songs, taking the complete piss at you, and then to go from party time to absolute depression within the space of 90 seconds or something is just absolutely hilarious in my opinion. But yeah, that's my fourth one in the list. Back to you, Martin.
So I think my fourth Derby moment that I'm going to mention is a moment of not so much joy, but a moment of relief, which is how it makes it into my top five. It was a derby that you were probably at, Andy. It was in 2013 at Tannadice. 1-1 full time, Dundee with a man sent off. I think it was Gary Irvine who was sent off in the game actually. Dundee went 1-0 up and just, to use the phrase park the bus would be an insult to teams that do that. You've just had every single man putting their body on the line and defending really well, to be fair. But 89 minutes in, Big John Daly stepped up with a header and got the equaliser, and what a relief it was. Obviously, back then we still held that record of not having lost a derby at Tannadice for such a long time, and I just remember thinking that there's no way Dundee are going to beat us here, but we got that leveller, and what a joyous relief it was.
Okay, Jack, just back to you for your final one.
Yeah, final one is Martin's first one, and it was Foyut scoring the winner in the I think it was Scottish Cup against Dundee in the 89th minute, 90th minute of the game. I was absolute scenes. Yeah, me and Martin. Well, I was on the floor anyway. So yeah, that was a great goal to see, and I had a lot of fun at that point. So yeah, that's my number one.
Okay, and for me, my number 5 in the list is a game from 2004, very early days. Dundee won 1-0 against nine-man United. And I'm pretty sure one of the red cards was never a red card. I'm pretty sure, was it maybe Mark Wilson got sent off for what was deemed a handball, but so the ball got kind of played through and he headed it back to the goalie, but the linesman said that he'd handballed it back to the goalie and he got sent off. And if memory serves me right, Chris Innes was the other player that got sent off. I could be wrong in that, but I think it might have been. Anyway, Dundee ended up winning the game in the dying embers 1-0 with a goal from John Sutton. And it was like a header that was 99 times out of 100 a goalkeeper would save. And the goalie, whoever it was, can't mind, was Paul Gallagher. Or, I mean, was it maybe Tony Bullock? Anyway, whoever the goalie was, they let the ball through his legs and Dundee won the game 1-0 against nine-man United. And at that point, they'd no lost a game against United for quite a few games. So, yeah, that was my number 5 or number 1, whatever way you want to spin it. And we'll throw back to you, Martin, before we finish off.
So for my final memorable moment, I'm going back to 2015 for the other 6-2 derby. I think 83 minutes in when Charlie Telfer scored number 6, I just couldn't believe that we'd scored 6 goals in the derby. It was pure elation for a game that I had actually considered not going to. That was on the 1st of January 2015, and I remember lying in bed at my grand's house with an absolute raging hangover thinking, oh, I can't be bothered with this, but I went and I'm so glad I did. That was an amazing game, and to have seen us score 6 goals in the derby was just absolutely unbelievable. I couldn't believe what I was watching. It was a fantastic game.
Perfect. And just before we finish up, I'm going to do a wee bit of a new segment of Who Am I? So I've got 4 players here. I think 2 of them are probably easier than the other 2. So I'll give you the 2 kind of easier ones first. So Jack, since you're the regular co-host, you have got kind of first dibs on 1 or 2. Pick 1 or 2 for me.
1.
1, right, okay. So your first clue. I signed for Dundee United on June the 20th, 2006. You'll get more clues, so
yeah, okay.
You want another one?
Am I guessing? Can I guess just now?
You could have as many guesses as you like.
Right, okay. 2006. Lucas Aluska.
Nope. Right. I played for Dundee United between the 2006-7 season and the 2010-11 season.
Willow Flood?
Nope. My first manager was Craig Brewster?
2006, 2010.
So he left in 2011.
I think I've got this.
Lee Wilkie?
Nope. I left United in May 2011, signing for Cardiff City.
Cardiff. Oh, okay.
I've definitely got it.
Yeah. Cardiff was Craig Conway?
Bingo. There you go.
Yeah.
Right, Martin, you get the other easier one, probably. Okay. I signed for United on April the 16th, 2019.
Hit me again.
My first manager was Robbie Nielsen.
Could be about 40 players that he signed. Go again.
I played 4 seasons with United, 2019-20 to 2022-23.
4 seasons. Another clue.
Okay. I made 124 appearances, scoring 4 goals.
Wouldn't be Callum Butcher, would it?
Nope.
No.
I signed from Ayr United.
Well, definitely wasn't Lauren Shankland if he only scored 4 goals. Ayr United. Who did we sign from Ayr United?
I think I've got it.
It's going to annoy me.
No, don't.
Who did we sign from Ayr United? In 2019, you say?
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
United. You know what? If I don't get it, you'll tell me the name and I'll be like, of course. Is that the last of the clues?
Now you've got a couple more.
Give me another clue.
Okay. In the 2021 season, 2020 to 2021 season, I scored against Rangers at Tannadice.
Scored against Rangers at Tannadice. In the 2020-21 season?
Yep.
Who did we sign for Ayr United?
You've got one more clue, and as soon as I say it, you'll get it.
Go and tell us the clue.
Okay, my position is right back.
I can't even think of who it was. Oh man, that's going to right back. It's going to piss me off when I hear who this is.
I'll give you one more if you want.
Yeah, give us one more clue.
My current team is St Johnstone.
I think I've got it.
I can't even think who it is.
Jack.
Oh, no, no. I thought... I don't know.
A right back.
I thought... I
This is
know.
going to be an easy one too. Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah.
Go.
Liam Smith.
I was going to
for
say Liam
fuck's
Smith.
sake, of course it was Liam Smith.
I was literally going to say him, but I was like, well, I thought he was with Bohemians.
I remember that. Fuck.
Right,
of course
Jack.
it was Liam Smith.
This doesn't bode well for the harder ones. Are you wanting one or two?
Just go one again, why not?
Okay. Right, I signed for United on February the 8th, 2010.
February?
Yep.
Danny Catamarty.
Nope.
Okay.
Okay, I only played three games for United, all being in the SPL.
Okay, alright, you're just going to have to give me more.
Okay. The club previous to Dundee United was Inverness.
Mate, I got it from that first one. Yeah, oh, that's a good one, Andy.
Just played 3 games for United.
Yep.
Stuart Armstrong.
Nope. My position is a defender.
defender for Inverness. Nah.
Okay, and I'll give you the final one. I am from Latvia.
Pavel Mihajlovic.
Yep, there you go.
I'm sure
So
he
you
had
got...
Champions League experience when he came to Tannadice.
Okay, Martin, you've got this. This was probably the hardest one, actually, in thinking about it. Okay, first clue. I signed for United on July the 15th, 2018.
Seagrist?
No. My first manager was Shaba Laszlo.
Don't torture me with one of these players, Andy, for God's sake. Emil
I think
Ling?
I might actually have it.
Emil Ling?
No. Okay. I played 10 games in the Championship in the 2018-2019 season.
No.
Okay. I'm from England.
Hit me with another clue.
That put a spanner in the works.
Okay. My club previous to United was Partick Thistle.
Again?
Okay. My position is a defensive midfielder.
I was going to say Sam Stanton, but he came... It wasn't him, was it?
No.
Nah. Defensive midfielder. Another one?
Okay. I made my debut against Dunfermline in the Championship in a 3-2 defeat.
Another one?
Okay, your final clue. I left United for Connah's Quay Nomads.
Oh, what's his name? He was fucking louping. Is it no Adam Barton or something?
Yep, that's it.
He was a fucking hopeless cunt.
Right, so you got Adam Barton, but you didn't get Liam Smith.
Yeah. God knows how I've pulled that one out. Like I've actually tried to erase all of these players' names from my mind, so I don't know how I remembered that one.
Well, there you go. Very well done, boys. That concludes this week's episode 53. Just before we go, if you could find us on socials, on X we are at Sandeman ST Pod, on Instagram at the Sandeman Street Pod, and on YouTube at the Sandeman Street Podcast. Thanks very much as always for listening. Please take care and enjoy the derby. Bye for now.